Time for a look at today's top stories. President Biden will speak to the Israeli Prime Minister today in their first phone call since the deadly Israeli strike on 7 international aid workers. An Israeli military spokesperson called the killings a mistake, saying the humanitarian convoy wrongly identified as a hostile target.
Crews in Taiwan have been conducting a massive search following its most powerful earthquake in 25 years. The magnitude 7.4 quake hit during the morning rush hour. At least 9 people are dead, with about 1,000 people injured. Crews estimate up to 700 people are trapped in the rubble of a hotel.
A judge rejects former President Trump's effort to delay his April 15th hush money trial. Trump asked to delay the trial until the Supreme Court rules on whether he has presidential immunity in criminal cases. The judge says the president waited too long to make that request.